So welcome everyone. It's International Women's Day and we're turning it into International Women's Month. The theme for International Women's Day this year is Inspire Inclusion. And so the way I want to handle that is to talk to inspiring women who inspire me, who I admire, who have taught me something. And so I'm talking to my friend today. So I'm going to turn it over to you to introduce yourself.
Thank you so much, Lee. Call me Tibi. My name is Tibisay, but please do call me Tibi. And I'm so happy to be here. And thank you for inviting me for this special program. Introduce myself. I'm originally from Venezuela. That's where I was born. And now living in London for about 23 years.
Wow. That's amazing considering my little 1 year in London. So you've been here for a long time. So it's very exciting.
Yes, and during all these 22 years, I've seen a lot of things have happened. I originally came to London for 1 year to do an MBA. I was supposed to go back, and here I am. 22 years later, I stay 1 year after another year. I started to work here in finance, in corporate finance. I went all the way there. About 13 years ago, just after my baby was born, I decided, I rethink what I wanted to do in my life. I took a couple of years to enjoy my baby and my life, which I never really had opportunity to do that for such a long time. And then I went back to uni and I did something totally different. I studied clinical neuroscience.
It's so cool. I mean, and that's really where how we got to know each other. I took a course with you around sort of neuroscience and coaching and how that shows up in how we coach. And I have to tell you, the number of times that I have in talking to my clients said, okay, listen, the experience you're having is actually a chemical experience. This is not just you're not just having like a moment or a lack of confidence. You're actually having a chemical experience, right? And so a lot of what you taught me and all of us in your course has shown up in how I'm coaching people. So that was part of the reason I wanted to invite you here is I wanted you to share sort of your journey, how you got to doing what you do today. So maybe you changed careers, you said, I'm going to go into this other space. So talk a little bit about how that has shown up in what you do.
Yes, definitely. And first, I'm so happy you are still applying all the cocktails of neurotransmitters
Yes.
that it is what we learn in the program. Yes, so at that time, I went to study neuroscience mainly because at home we speak 3 languages. I'm married with a French guy, and I wanted to see how 3 languages impact the brain of my child. And I did a small program, and then I always say I fall in love with the brain. And I decided to go all the way and to do this master in neuroscience. And I didn't know, to be honest, at that time, how I will be using it. I just wanted to do it for my own learning, for my own time. Sometimes you need those reflections. It managed to be a full program at the end for almost 3 years.
Wow.
And what I learned and how I use it is I learned that, as you well say, we have a lot of chemistry. Our behavior is really triggered by our neurobiology. And depending what cocktail or mixture of that neurobiology I have, I behave in one way or another one. Okay. And also the other way around, depending how I behave, I trigger certain chemistry. Right. And that was my thinking. How can we actually do to align both of them? Right. Is any way, in a natural way, without going into any synthesized chemistry, right, and drugs? Is there any way that we can work with the neurobiology in our side rather than against us? And that question has followed me for years and years.
Yeah, for sure. And so now you spend a lot of time teaching others how that shows up in how they're working with people. Is that a fair way to say it?
Yes, that's right. So basically, after so much research, I've been teaching others and coaching others to actually work with that biology in your side, especially lately I've been working a lot with change. Because during change, we have so much uncertainty, and we have this neurobiology working really against us, there is so much threat. And threat, for example, release a lot of cortisol, adrenaline, noradrenaline, so many. And not necessarily this is what we need in moments of change. In moments of change, we need creativity, we need some excitement, we need energy to help us. And this is specifically what I do, is any way we can actually promote other chemistry like dopamine, oxytocin, for us to feel more bonded, to have more sense of belonging. Yeah.
Yeah, it's an interesting, as you're talking, I was thinking, this wasn't even on my list of questions. So I'm like, we're going somewhere else. Cause as you're talking, I was like, oh, I want to think more about this. Since it's International Women's Month or National Women's, it's Women's History Month and International Women's Day. I was thinking just now as you were talking about, in COVID, during the time of COVID, women took such a hit. Like women because they were doing so much care, they had to be home more. A lot of women left the workforce. As we've come out of that, and there's been so many in tech, at least massive amounts of layoffs. A huge portion of those layoffs have been women and young women all the way up to older women. And I'm wondering it is a time of change. It is a time of trying to figure out what's next for a lot of these people, right? And specifically for this group of women. What do you think are some things that they may be experiencing that they could also, and what tools do you think they have to sort of lift themselves into whatever is the next phase?
And it's a great question, Lee. I think we all suffer so many changes during COVID, right? And especially me, I'm usually very positive about certainty. I don't suffer of uncertainty. And I still remember that Friday when it was announced, there's no restaurant, there is no pub, there is no tomorrow. It's suddenly that biology that we're talking about, it just raised and it totally blocked your brain, right? You have so much of that biology, of that adrenaline that you want to move, you want to fight, you want to cry, right? And times goes and probably you it's difficult to move out of this, right? And as a woman, we always have probably even a bit more of that hormones and biology is not necessarily playing in our favor. So it's a little bit harder as well, right? And what I would say, and it helped me to go through, and it helped me to go nowadays to major changes. What I learned is one key biology, which is oxytocin.
Yes.
Is all about these bonding hormones. As a woman, we mainly get oxytocin the highest by breastfeeding our babies. That is from evolution perspective. But now we have learned a lot about how we can actually help to have extra oxytocin. And this is about having friends, having groups to talk. This talk, for example, between us is bonding us, right? It's a sense of belonging. And hoping, like as a result of all these months of women listening a conversation like this, it helps you to release oxytocin, because we basically need to find ways that we have a sense of belonging. When we believe like we belong to a group, when we believe that we are part of a group and we feel like we're part of it, that really come out. And a lot of research showing that when we are flow of oxytocin, we increase our sense of well-being. The cortisol, the stress goes down. And obviously that helps us to move forward. So that's what I would say. During times of change, one of the biggest learning for me is trying to find a sense of belonging. It could be of what you are going through, so that change, or it could be somewhere else. We don't have pockets of oxytocin.
Right.
The brain doesn't say, I have this pocket here
I
for
can
this
only get it from
project.
here. I have to get it, no. And it's funny because
No,
when I was planning my year this year and was sort of coming up with like, okay, what things do I want in my life? What would I like to manifest? One of kind of the affirmations I created for myself was I am part of a community that embraces me, that makes me feel accepted and belong. And, because I think and that's what's interesting is even just having that as part of my daily practice, I sort of find myself starting to belong, right? Because I'm talking about it, I'm hoping for it, and then someone will invite me somewhere, and I am quicker to say yes. And so it's creating this space where I'm like, yeah, okay, I belong. I have a home in London. I'm not just living here, right? And but I think it's really fascinating, and that was part of the reason I wanted to do this with you and with others is I want women to have a sense of we are a community. You are not alone. There's someone here who could say, oh, I've been there, right? And let's talk about it. And I think because I do think that is a way that you reignite creativity, a way that you reignite, ideas again and say, okay, how do I move from here to there, right? I think
exactly. And as you say, I think we as probably foreigners in a different country, in a way of another one is even more important because you need to build that sense of community, that sense of belonging. When we going through big changes, we need to try to find, it could be a sense of belonging of a part of what you do. Like, for example, and as you can see, I'm passionate about neuroscience.
Yeah.
And finding people who likes neuroscience or study neuroscience, this really increase my oxytocin.
Yeah.
And automatically I trust these people I speak to because
Right.
when you have oxytocin, you also increase the trust.
Mhm.
So now what I would say that sometimes we naturally do it, right? It's
Mhm.
like we're starving for that community. Sometimes it's so hard when we are stressed,
Yeah.
especially when we are going in transformations and big changes.
Mhm.
It's hard sometimes to step out and to consciously think, oh, I need to find that community. I need to find that sense of belonging.
Yeah.
And what I have learned is that to build habits for it is a
Yeah.
habit of always questioning, what can I do? Who I can talk to? What group am I going to visit? And
Yeah.
once that habit is there, the moment that we need it the most, the habit call you to do it.
Um,
And that's what I learned. Usually when we need one biology, it could be neurobiology, it could be oxytocin or any other. Unless we have habits built to
Yeah.
trying to release on them, they don't usually come because
Right.
it's not what we do the
Not
most.
natural. Yeah, it doesn't come naturally.
Exactly.
It's
Yeah.
interesting. I think about like when I moved to Seattle, and then obviously when I've moved to Stockholm and to Berlin and to here along the way. When I moved to Seattle, it was hard. It was a hard change, and it was rainier, and there was so much. And I had been there 6 months, and I was very lonely. I thought a lot about packing my things and going back to where my sister was, and what was interesting was I made a deal with myself. Okay, I will for the next 6 months go out twice a week. I will join a book club. I will join a women's group. I will go to the gym. These are the things I will do every week. And if at the end of 6 months I do not have any friends and I do not have any community, then I will pack my things and go. And to your point, what happened was because I pushed myself to do it and I made a deal with myself to create the habit, I made friends. And before long, Seattle was my home. And I was like, oh, and what was interesting is that every time I've moved, I've known that was the key, that I needed to have a plan, make some effort, and get out there. And people want to befriend others, right? So, but I think it's that's what you just talked about. If you don't do it, then it doesn't just come naturally when you're desperate for it, right?
Exactly, it is. And this also translates to work. I have seen so much resistance. I mean, nowadays, I think within organizational, it's happening many things. It's coming AI, so many types of transformations, right? And a lot of people are kind of freeze. They think like they don't belong anymore. They have lost status. They have lost the way of working. And building those habits at work is so important as well within organization, and for women especially, right? Because we're talking about Women's Day, it is like, how do we do also to have that balance of oxytocin at work and at home? And if it cannot happen at work, how do we find that extra pocket, because we don't have the pockets,
Right.
right? But it's about building those habits. I agree.
Yeah, 100%. And I do think I think it's really important, because I think we, you don't, kind of to your point about, we don't just get these little rain clouds from certain pockets. Like, I take my whole self to work. I don't get to leave some part of me at home and be like, well, this part of my chemistry has to stay at home because I don't feel this way. So you have to figure out, like, how am I going to find this balance, and where will I find that connection? And if I can't find it here, am I in the right place? Do I need to do something different? Or do I get enough elsewhere to be able to be okay for these hours during the day? Right.
That's right. And another reflection and having about the chemistry is endorphins, right? Which are those ones that help us when we are going through pain. And I mean change, transformation, from life change, organizational change. I mean, one of the main things is like we feel pain, right? Even if we want, even if we are excited about something gonna happen, it feels painful.
Right.
Endorphins are our natural chemistry to deal with pain.
Yeah.
And trying to find ways to be able, natural ways to support release of endorphins is important. And what I learned is like laughter, celebration, it helps so much to release endorphins. They come naturally. I mean, there are a lot of research showing that the more we laugh, the more endorphins will come, and the more we celebrate as well. So it's building, again, talking about the habit, is about those habits that we build to celebrate even small things, even if we have a mess in our life. Right? What is it that I could focus on, that I can celebrate those small wins? Because that releases endorphins. And again, we feel a little bit less pain, and then we carry on. And I think that's the way to deal. That's probably are my two majors learning.
I love that. I love that, because what that makes me think about, and I think that is ultimately, you get the endorphins moving, and then you actually can start to generate those really lovely feelings. It reminds me of just that sense of family, right? When you are struggling as a family through something, but something makes you laugh, and you laugh together, and you end up with this like internal language, right? Or really close friends, or a partner, where you just have this ability, no matter how hard the day is, to sort of make each other laugh, or to bring some lightness. And I think if we can do that more in our organizations, as leaders, and say, let's find ways to bring some lightness and levity, and to the high pressure that we're all under. And I think that over the years, I've tried really hard to use humor with my teams, and to do that. And I think it's allowed them to have a bond with me, right, as a leader, that is different than maybe some of the bonds they've had with others, because they have a sense that it's not all serious, it's not all high pressure, and that I want them to have some fun, and to celebrate, and to, but I love that, because that sense of what you're just describing, because it does have this sense of like family and connection and home, and all of that, which I love. So
definitely. And I think you do two things, right? You release endorphins as a result of having fun, of sharing what you're saying, and at the same time, that bonds you together, where we go back again to the oxytocin. So it's like a snowflow. I was reflecting while you were talking about family. I'm from Venezuela, as I say, and Venezuela is a developing country with a lot of problems, a lot of poverty, right? But people laugh so much. I grew up, the memory I have from home is people are together laughing, maybe talking about something that it goes wrong, a struggle they are doing, but still they laugh, they still celebrate. Let's put the music and dance. I'm not saying everybody is like this, right? I mean, because there are very introverted people. I mean, there are a full range of diversity, right? that is my learning. I'm well unattached to that, and I tend to do that. If something is wrong, I put music, I find friends. But there are other ways to celebrate, right? It is not only about dancing and being like probably reflecting what we are in Venezuela and in Latin countries, but you could celebrate closely with one friend, with two friends. If from organizational perspective, you could celebrate like giving positive feedback. Just by a positive feedback, you could create those habits. And that is a way of celebration. Because when you provide a positive feedback to somebody, then that brain take it as a celebration. And that's probably we as a woman need to learn that. Am I providing enough positive feedback to another of us as well?
Well, you know, it's interesting you say that, because one of the things I learned along the way was when I was leading people, when I was a manager of people, that if I would just simply use, instead of saying thanks for taking care of that or thank you, if I would just say, oh, I appreciate you. I appreciate you for what you did. I appreciate the time you spent. Just the change of words made the person sit up a little taller and feel a little more, oh, like they felt celebrated, right? Because I used slightly different language that meant more than thanks, right? Because we throw thank you around really, really easily, right? We throw thank you and I'm sorry. We sort of throw those things around. But when we really say, I'm so sorry, I apologize, or I really appreciate what you did. It made my life easier. You were the right person for it. People will just sort of suddenly they open up. They're like they bloom, right? And I think there's so many, and I think we can do that with children. I think we can do it with our family members, but words matter. and just you finding words that kick off those chemicals and kick off that connection, I think is so powerful.
Yeah, definitely. And I think those are the small habits that we need to create. When we are all stressed, they don't come naturally unless we train our brain to do so.
I love that. Well, as a last question, I'm asking everyone, if you were going to give young Tibi some information, some advice from where you are now that maybe could help those who are listening, what would you tell her?
Oh my God, what would I say? I would say probably I'm quite impulsive. I always see the positive side of everything and I make a decision and I just go with it. I would probably say go a bit slower sometimes. Having the time to reflect and to live sleep sense can make things in a better shape. I'm not saying I have done anything that I regret. Actually, as a result of my impulse, I love how life has taken me, but it has been hard. It has been hard, for example, changing my career and starting from zero. I would have said, Tibisay, probably carry on what you want to do with neuroscience, but do it part-time until you build up a little bit of knowledge so you can work with this. So that's what I would say.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. It's good because I think, I've asked this question of everybody so far and there have been lots of different answers. And I do think that there are folks, I tend to be, I'm a very independent and I make decisions quickly and I go, right? And people are like, my therapist says, when I say something might happen, she knows that that's coming, because once I say like, I'm considering moving to London, she's like, well, Leah's going to move to London. Once I've got it, it's happening, right? And she's like, I always know once you start talking about what you're considering that that's probably coming, right? But I agree with you. Like some of us who have that tendency, it works out a lot, but also being able to slow down and go, okay, what am I doing? Why am I? Is it the right thing, right? And being able to do that. And I think my friends and family would be grateful if once in a while I was like, hang on, let me think about what I'm doing.
Well, we are two of us, Ellie, on the same boat.
So I love that advice. It's great. I think there are probably plenty of women and men out there who that advice is great. So thank you for sharing that. Yeah. Thank you for letting me interview you and talking to me. It was a lot of fun just to have a chat with you about this stuff, and it's such a wealth of information that you have. I highly recommend anyone watching to take the course, even if you are like, well, I'm interested in it, but take the courses that Tibi is giving, because you'll glean so much for yourself, but for those around you as a leader, as a coach, as a counselor, whatever it is you do. So I highly recommend it. So
Thank
thank
you,
you.
Lee. And thank you for being part of this
Yeah.
big project. I love it. I mean, it's creating oxytocin, isn't
Yeah,
it? That's all
exactly.
what we're doing this month.
Exactly. Every time I finish, I'm like, this is the best interview ever after each one.
Yeah.
So
Sure, you feel
I
that.
know it's my
I need
chemical.
to watch all of them.
Yeah, they're going to be, they're all really amazing. It's been really great conversation. So, for those of you who are watching, you'll see in the corner there is a little QR code where you can donate to the Malala Fund. The Malala Fund makes sure that women and girls in developing areas have access to education, and they also make sure that those who in other parts of the world who want access to STEM or medical education or bigger opportunities get that access. So over the course of this month, we're going to raise money for the Malala Fund, and then we'll make sure that that gets to them at the end of the series. So again, Tibi, thank you for joining me, and it was super fun to chat with you.
Fantastic. Thank you.